3:17 a.m., May 9th, 1941. 300 miles west of Iceland, the North Atlantic. The destroyer HMS Bulldog rises and falls in a monstrous ink-black swell. Salt spray explodes against the bridge windows, the sound a relentless wet crackle. The wind isn't a whistle here, it's a scream in the rigging. Lieutenant Commander Joe Baker Cresswell, binoculars pressed hard against his eyes, sees only the chaotic peaks of waves in the stinging horizontal rain. But he's not looking at the water, he's listening. The metallic ping, ping, ping of the Azdic echoes through the ship, a cold, sonic heartbeat searching the abyss below. There, a return, solid, close. An hour ago, they had depth-charged a German U-boat, U-110. A bloom of oil and debris had surfaced, and the crew of the Bulldog watched the enemy vessel wallow, mortally wounded. But now, as a boarding party rows a whaler through the heaving, treacherous sea toward the stricken submarine, a new, gut-twisting reality sets in. U-110 isn't sinking. Not yet. Her crew, believing her doomed, had abandoned ship. But the hulk remains afloat, a ghost ship carrying secrets in its steel belly. Leading the boarding party is Sub-Lieutenant David Balm. As the whaler crashes against the U-boat's slick casing, he is the first to leap across the gap, his boots sliding on the wet metal. The only sound is the howl of the wind and the submarine's own groans. The conning tower hatch is open. Balm descends the ladder into absolute darkness, the beam of his torch cutting a shaky path through a world never meant for enemy eyes. The smell hits him first, a thick cocktail of diesel, sweat, and stale recycled air. His light sweeps across the control room, gauges, charts, valves. Then it lands on a small metal cupboard welded to the bulkhead. He pries it open. Inside, not uniforms or rations, but books, ledgers, and a strange, compact typewriter-like machine with a chaotic alphabet of keys and plugs. He doesn't know its name, but you'd recognize its cousin, the Enigma. This is the officer model, used only for the U-boat force's most secret signals. Balm's men begin passing up everything: codebooks, signal logs, encryption settings. They strip the radio room bare. On the Bulldog, Baker Cresswell watches the laden whaler return. The sea could still swallow the boat, the men, the priceless cargo. One rogue wave, his jaws clenched so tight it aches. The documents arrive on deck, soaked in seawater, but intact. They are rushed to the captain's cabin. Among them is the Kurt Signale book, the short signal code for U-boats, and the current Ken Gruppen book, the holy grail for any codebreaker, the key to recognizing which key was being used for a specific message. Baker Cresswell knows this is bigger than one U-boat kill. He signals the convoy to proceed and turns his ship toward Scapa Flow, then toward Bletchley Park. The Bulldog races through hostile waters, her captain guarding a secret more valuable than a fleet, the inner workings of the German Navy's encrypted mind. But this is not the first windfall. Just weeks earlier, in the frigid, mud-churned chaos of the Allied retreat from Norway, a separate team had stumbled upon abandoned German cipher materials. 2 pieces of a catastrophic puzzle were now in British hands, and at a country estate 50 miles north of London, a man in a dark suit, smelling of cigar smoke and brandy, was about to put them together. He waits. The documents are dried, analyzed, photographed. A courier car speeds through the night. When the package finally lands on his desk, Winston Churchill doesn't see complex codes. He sees a door. And on the other side of it, he knows, stand every Nazi spy in Britain.
The documents from U-110 and the Norwegian Mutt did not go to Whitehall. They went to a place that did not officially exist: Bletchley Park, a sprawling, incongruous Victorian estate of red brick and fake Tudor beams, surrounded by a perimeter of high fencing and a silence thicker than any wall. Here, the world's greatest concentration of mathematical geniuses, classical linguists, and chess champions toiled in wooden huts, their windows blacked out, breathing air thick with the smell of cigarette smoke, oiled paper, and relentless tension. In Hut 8, a young man in a wrinkled suit, Alan Turing, hunched over a prototype machine called the bomb. Its clicking rotors were a mechanical brain, chewing through millions of Enigma settings, searching for the day's key. The naval Enigma, Schlüssel M, was the toughest. The Kriegsmarine added extra wheels, complex procedures. It was a lock with 1 billion possible combinations, changing at midnight. But the captured materials, the short signal book, the Kenngruppen, were like being given a fragment of the locksmith's blueprint. They didn't provide the key, but they showed how the lock was built. Turing's colleague Harry Hinsley, a 22-year-old prodigy with an intuitive grasp of the enemy's mind, pored over the signal logs. He noticed patterns, routines, the lazy habits of stressed U-boat radio operators, a repeated greeting, a standard weather report format, a crib. This was the chink. The bomb fed these cribs could now test possibilities at a terrifying speed. The metallic cacophony of its relays was the sound of a door being forced. And then, one day, it happened. The clicks stopped on a setting. The garbled ciphertext from a U-boat reporting its position to Lorient resolved. It became clear, German words on a typed slip. Grid square AJ-37, 2 tankers sunk, returning to base. The breakthrough was seismic. For the first time, the Admiralty could see the Wolfpack forming in real time. Convoys were rerouted. Lives were saved.
But Churchill, reading the resulting ultra-intelligence reports in his underground map room, saw a second, more explosive opportunity. If they could read the secret communications of the Abwehr, the German military intelligence service, they wouldn't just see enemy plans, they would see the enemy's eyes. And the Abwehr's eyes in Britain were its spies. The messages decrypted at Bletchley revealed their arrivals by parachute, by rubber dinghy, by submarine. Their code names: Summer, Tate, Garbo. Their missions: report on troop movements, factory outputs, civilian morale. Each signal was a confession, a broadcast of an agent's existence, status, and needs. The realization was as cold as the Atlantic that had given up the secret. This wasn't just about interception, it was about control. Every spy the Abwehr thought it had in Britain was, in fact, a prisoner in a cell whose walls were made of decrypted German radio waves. The British now held the unique, godlike position of knowing what their enemy believed they knew. But knowing is one thing, acting on it is another. A dangerous, delicate dance had to begin. The security service, MI5, had to find these men and women without alerting Berlin, and then they had to make them an offer they couldn't refuse: turn or hang. The first target was a Welshman named Arthur Owens, Abwehr codename Johnny. He was already in British custody, a volatile double agent of dubious loyalty. He was the test. Could they use him to send a false message back, a message that would pass the Abwehr scrutiny? The signal was drafted, encoded using the very procedures Bletchley had broken, and sent. Days later, at Bletchley, they decrypted the Abwehr's response. It was a request for more information. Berlin had believed it. The basement of 35 St. James's Street, London, was not a place for the faint of heart. It was the interrogation center of MI5's ultra-secret Double Cross Committee, known as the 20 Committee, XX for Double Cross. Here, under the bare, glaring light bulbs, the theoretical miracle of broken codes met the gritty, terrifying reality of human beings. Men like Tommy Tar Robertson, the committee's operational chief, had a simple, brutal calculus. An agent must be turned, imprisoned, or executed. There was no fourth option. The first major success was a man codenamed Summer. His real name was Wolf Schmidt, a hardened Nazi parachutist who landed in Cambridgeshire in September 1940.
He was found with a radio, a cipher, and a fierce loyalty to the Reich. He was taken to Camp 020, a grim interrogation center where Commandant Lieutenant Colonel Tin Eye Stevens employed psychological warfare more than torture. The goal was not just confession, but conversion. Stevens played his hand masterfully. He revealed to Schmidt in meticulous detail his entire life history, his childhood in Denmark, his Abwehr training in Hamburg, the name of his handler. Schmidt's defiance crumbled into sheer, disorienting terror. How could they know all of this? The invisible, omniscient power of Bletchley's decrypts made British intelligence seem supernatural. Faced with the choice of the noose or cooperation, Schmidt, now renamed Agent Tate, chose to live. His radio, under MI5's control, began sending carefully crafted falsehoods back to Hamburg. But one agent was a trick, a network was a weapon. The double-cross system grew, agent by perilous agent. There was Brutus, a Polish officer pretending to be a Nazi collaborator. Tricycle, a suave Yugoslav playboy with high-level Abwehr connections. And then the masterpiece, Garbo.
Juan Pujol Garcia was a Spaniard who hated the Nazis with a quiet, burning passion. He had walked into the British embassy in Madrid offering his services and was initially turned away. Undeterred, he invented an entire network of 27 sub-agents across Britain, a bus driver in Glasgow, a waiter in Liverpool, a disaffected Welsh nationalist, all figments of his spectacular imagination. He fed this fiction to the Abwehr, who paid him and lavished him with praise. By the time MI5 finally realized his genius and smuggled him to Britain, Garbo's reputation in Berlin was already golden. He was their star. Now, under MI5's direct control, Garbo's fictional network expanded. His reports were minor masterpieces, plausible, self-correcting, filled with mundane but verifiable detail. They were also, in their entirety, fiction. The Abwehr trusted him completely. His case proved the ultimate truth of the double-cross. The best lie is the one the enemy wants to believe. Yet the strain was immense. Case officers lived in constant fear of a blown transmission, a missed security check, a single moment of agent hesitation that would scream controlled to a suspicious Abwehr analyst. The margin for error was zero. Every message sent was a high-wire act, balanced between credibility and deception. And then, in late 1943, a new, chilling directive came down from Churchill and the Allied High Command. The entire, fragile, beautiful edifice of the double-cross system was to be pivoted toward a single, monumental purpose. It was no longer just about protecting Britain. It was about enabling the greatest amphibious invasion in human history. The system was to be weaponized for D-Day. Their task was no less than to convince Hitler's high command that the Normandy landings were a feint, that the real blow would fall hundreds of miles away. The fate of Overlord now rested on the shoulders of turned spies, controlled radios, and the supreme confidence that Bletchley Park would let them hear the enemy's every doubt. Spring 1944. South of Paris, at the sprawling La Roche-Guyon Chateau, Field Marshal Erwin Rommel studies a wall-sized map of the French coastline. His fingers tap the Pas de Calais, the narrowest point of the English Channel. Logic, instinct, and basic military strategies scream that this is where the Allies will come. It is the obvious choice. And in London, the 20 Committee knows he thinks this. Their job is to make the obvious seem like fact carved in stone. Operation Fortitude is born. It is a masterpiece of theatrical warfare, and the double-cross agents are its lead actors. Every message they send is now a brushstroke in a vast, deceptive canvas. The script is meticulously written by intelligence officers, but the delivery must be flawless, imbued with the subtle hesitations and minor errors of a genuine spy. Garbo's fictional network swings into unprecedented action. His
agent in Scotland reports the sighting of the mythical 1st U.S. Army Group, FUSAG, commanded by the formidable General George Patton. Garbo's messages describe unit patches overheard in pubs, train carriages packed with American troops heading east, and increased activity around the ports of Dover and Folkestone. He even fabricates a drunken American sergeant who reveals the Pas de Calais as the big show. The Abwehr, believing they have a ring of agents across Britain, cross-reference these reports. They corroborate. Brutus, the turned Polish officer, feeds similar intelligence from his own sources within the Polish government in exile. Tate, the once defiant Nazi parachutist, now reports on ammunition dumps and troop concentrations in southeast England, his transmissions laced with the grumbling of a man doing a dangerous job for money. But it's not just radio waves. The deception is physical, tangible. From the air, German reconnaissance planes photograph a vast armada of inflatable tanks, plywood aircraft, and canvas landing craft staged in Kent. They see bustling harbors that are Hollywood-style facades. They see tracks in the mud made by tanks that are in fact trucks with specially designed treads. Every piece of this puzzle, gathered by the Abwehr's eyes, fits perfectly, because the British are controlling the puzzle box.
At Bletchley Park, the codebreakers now perform a double duty. They decrypt the Abwehr's signals to Berlin, revealing how the false information is being received. The tension is unbearable. They read the growing German conviction in the Pas de Calais threat. They also see the nervous queries, the requests for confirmation. One wrong move, one contradictory report from a real source they haven't captured, and the entire house of cards collapses. Then, the ultimate test. In the early hours of June 6, 1944, as the real invasion fleet churns toward the beaches of Normandy, the deception must reach its crescendo. Garbo performs his tour de force. At 3 a.m., he sends a frantic, encrypted message to Madrid. His subagent has reported convoys massing for Normandy. But, crucially, he states this is likely a diversion. He says he will try to confirm the main attack at Calais. His MI5 handlers hold their breath. They are having him warn the enemy on the eve of invasion. It is a staggering gamble to preserve his credibility. The Abwehr receives it, but by pre-arrangement, his Madrid controller is asleep. The message sits, undelivered to Berlin, for over 8 hours. When it is finally forwarded, the landings at Omaha, Utah, Gold, Juneau, and Sword are already underway. To German high command, Garbo looks like a hero who tried to warn them, his message tragically delayed. His standing is not just intact, it is enhanced. For weeks after D-Day, the ruse holds. Hitler remains convinced Normandy is the secondary attack. The powerful German 15th Army with its panzer divisions stays locked in the Pas de Calais, waiting for the main assault that will never come. It is the double-cross system's supreme achievement, an army of ghosts conjured by turned spies and broken codes, pinning down a real army of 300,000 men. The secrets pried from the sea and the Norwegian mud had, against all odds, built a weapon that changed the course of the war. But what happens when the war moves on and the men who know these secrets must return to a world that can never learn the truth? August 1945. The wireless sets fall silent. One by one, the controlled agents send their final, pre-arranged signals. The messages are variations on a theme. The network is compromised. I am being pursued. This is my last transmission. Long live the fatherland. Then, the static. In apartments and safe houses across Britain, case officers powered down the radios that had been instruments of a historic deception. There was no celebration, only a profound, hollow quiet. The aftermath of the double-cross system was not a parade, but a disappearing act. The agents themselves entered a limbo. Some, like Tate, Wolf Schmidt, chose to stay in Britain, living under a new name, forever looking over his shoulder for a ghost from the Abwehr that no longer existed.
Garbo, Juan Pujol, feared Nazi vengeance and was smuggled to Venezuela, his monumental contribution unknown, his genius fading into obscurity. The men and women of MI5 and Bletchley Park were bound by the Official Secrets Act, a lifetime vow of silence that became a part of their psyche. They returned to civilian life as bankers, teachers, and clerks, carrying history's greatest secret inside them. And the monument to their victory? It was not made of stone, but of fire and classified ink. At Bletchley Park, the order came down: destroy the evidence. The very machines that had broken the Enigma, the bombs and Colossus computers, were dismantled. Blueprints were burned. Thousands of decrypts, the raw transcripts of the war's most intimate secrets, were fed into incinerators. The policy was of absolute denial. Churchill himself would refer to the codebreakers only as the geese that laid the golden eggs and never cackled. The goal was not just to protect past methods, but future ones. In the dawning Cold War, the value of signals intelligence was immeasurable. Its sources had to remain invisible.
For decades, the truth was buried. Historians wrote of the Battle of the Atlantic, of D-Day, without the crucial beating heart of the story, that the Allies were reading the enemy's mail. The German commanders, in their post-war memoirs, spoke of Allied air superiority in Russian numbers, never suspecting the pervasive blindness under which they had fought. The greatest intelligence coup in history was a vacuum, an absence in the narrative. It wasn't until the 1970s, with the first cautious declassifications, that the story began to seep out. The public learned the name Bletchley Park. They heard whispers of Turing. But the full human drama of the double cross, the turned spies, the psychological duels, the sheer audacity of controlling the enemy's entire espionage apparatus remained in shadow, a more sensitive secret still. So what is their legacy? It is not just in the battles won or the lives saved, though those were legion. It is in the very architecture of modern intelligence, in the understanding that information is not just to be collected, but actively shaped. It is in the poignant cost paid by the individuals who won a war they could never describe. They built an invisible monument, one made of risks taken, lies believed, and silence kept. Their victory was absolute, and for that, they had to vanish.